Hey, what's happening, my boys? Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I love these tier listings. We've made one before about killers that we could 1v1, like actually fight. Today we're going to do a ranking of all of Billy's add-ons. Billy is the killer we play, I'd say, the most by far. And between us girls here, we're still pretty bad at him. Let's be honest. Whoa, Lucky. Let me just stop you there, mate. It's nothing to do with your skill level, okay? It's not your fault. It's the game's fault. The game is trash. It's not your fault. Hey, life throws you curveballs, mate. That's what you have to deal with. This is just my opinion. Obviously, other people might have like a different perspective, but this is just what I think about Billy's add-ons. If they're worth using, whereabouts they sit on like a tier list sort of table, I guess. Let's get into it. Steel cap boots, reduce recovery after hitting an object. An add-on that has no negative, which is what I really like, which a lot of them seem to do have. Oh, not a lot, but a few of his add-ons have this. So let's chuck this. It's pretty trash. It's C or D. I don't want to be so mean and say it's a D, but maybe a C, because there's no negative, which is cool, but it's only slightly as well. So it's nothing great. And usually you can anticipate bumping into something, so you stop your chainsaw short to prevent the collision. Unless you flick wrong, or curve wrong and hit something or hit a tree. But usually you can anticipate this happening and see it happening before it does. It doesn't just sneak up on you. So I'd go as far as to say it's a D. It's not even worth using. Speed limiter? Oh, well, that's the most obvious one. That's the easiest one of them all. Nope, a little bit higher, boom, S tier. Just kidding, it's actually D, we all know that. Alright, the junkyard air filter. It reduces, okay, what's the best way to explain this? I think it's D straight up. Your chainsaw can handle more heat, I guess. What's another way of looking at this? Alright, so your chainsaw can handle 100 heat. Now, with this add-on, your chainsaw can handle 110 heat, which is pretty good. I guess in theory, your chainsaw can tolerate more before it overheats. But you got to remember, that's just more heat that you have to try and cool down, if you know what I'm saying. So I guess you could say your chainsaw is giving it 110%. You're going the extra mile, but at the cost of being more worn out. So that's more time you have to spend trying to cool down your chainsaw. So I mean, it's cool in the thought of it. You can handle more heat, but then you have to spend longer trying to cool it down. The reducing of a collision zone is pretty good, because you get cucked by the randomest stuff. Debris, branches, the tiniest branch sticking off a tree I've hit, it has collision. So if you can reduce that, that's all good. The only thing I'm worried about is if it reduces the collision zone on a survivor, which is what you don't want. You want their, I guess, hitbox to be as big as possible, so you have more chance of landing a hit. So that's the only thing I'm worried about. I'm feeling generous, let's make it a C. The punctured muffler reduces the cooling of the chainsaw, has no negative, which is actually pretty surprising for a Billy add-on, so it's got to be a B or a C. If you're not using engravings, the overheat mechanic isn't the biggest, cuck. It's not the end of the world. Obviously, it's annoying overheating with your chainsaw, but without engravings, it's not the biggest problem. But it's still good. There's no negative, which is dope. So, alright, off-brand motor oil. I mean, it's good. There's no negative, and it's like a plus, obviously. But you've still got a 32 meter tear radius to worry about. I guess you can see some synergy with like some certain perks and other add-ons, but in itself, a slightly reduced chainsaw noise isn't the greatest thing. I'm gonna go with C. Okay, death engravings, let's think about it. Are they good? No, let's be honest. I use them all the time. 95% of the time, actually, I use them there. Because I love Flick Billy, even though I can't flick.
You suck, you jackass.
Why don't you shut the hell up?
Okay, so you go faster. Fantastic. Only slightly. That's a bit of an annoyance. But what are the costs? It takes longer to charge a chainsaw and go off into a sprint. So they can make a pallet, they can make a window. That's annoying in itself, but there's also another downside you have to factor in as well. You're generating more heat. When it takes longer to charge a chainsaw, obviously more heat is getting generated and you're getting closer to overheat. So it's not that great. It's a C or a B. I'm just going to chuck it in C. Big Smoke's boots, aka Dad's boots. Straight up B. Maybe even a C, but we'll go B. There's no negative. Absolutely great news. When you don't use boots at all and you're on a chainsaw sprint, you know what you can make it around. You know what you can kind of curve around, sort of thing. When you start incorporating boots to it, you're getting used to something that's not always going to be there unless you run the boots regularly. But maybe I'm wrong. That's just my opinion. These are pretty decent if you're into that sort of thing. But if you're not using engravings, and using the boots, you can actually get around a lot of stuff because you're not going as fast. So it's pretty good. The big buckle hitting. I feel like I'm being mean. It's a C or a D. What world would this be good? I'm trying to have a quick think. When would this actually ever be good? Okay, you're chasing somebody. You're right behind them. You go to chainsaw them. Your chainsaw overheats. Great. Yeah, that's cool. Your tear radius is now 8 meters smaller. Fantastic. Even though the survivor is literally right in front of you, they know they're looking right at you. So that's not going to work. You purposely overheat your chainsaw just so you can get a smaller tear radius. Now you're an M1 killer. Cool. With a 32 meter tear radius. Trash. Mother's Helpers, actually a decent add-on. It could be better for its tier level, for a green add-on. So you have to be eating pellets. So you can't respect, you have to pretty much eat pellets to try and get stunned, just to get this to proc. And then you've only got 30 seconds of slightly increased charge time. I mean, really, you've got to spend time eating the stun and breaking the pellet most likely anyway. Even if you zone them, you still most likely have to break the pellet unless they decide to leave. Which they probably won't. You probably got to eat the pellet and the stun. So now you're left with like, I don't know, 25 seconds, only slightly. This goes good with Spirit Fury and Enduring, I feel like, but for a green add-on, it's not that great. But I'm going to chuck it in B because it has no negatives, just like conditions to activate. If you compare these add-ons to other killers add-ons, you drop all these down a few levels, but just for strictly Billy, this is what it is. Low kickback chains. There's no negative, which is great to start with. C, I'd say, because most of the time you can anticipate or you can see a hit coming. You can see collision coming before it happens, obviously. You're chainsawing, stuff doesn't sneak up on you out of nowhere. You know it's coming, so you just stop your chainsaw short. Usually, if you're going to bump into something, it's when you're going for a flick. I feel like that's the most time it happens to me. If I'm just zooming across the map, 9 times out of 10, if I'm going to hit something I see it coming beforehand and I stop my chainsaw short. Unless it's just like a branch or something where you wouldn't think in a million years it would hit, but collision zones make it hit. So it's cool for a new Billy, but I think you get over it quickly and it's not that great. It's got to be C or D, but I'll put C because it's got no negative. My beloved Doom engravings. The love I have for Doom engravings cannot be compared. I love Billy and I would never play Billy without Doom engravings. Okay, that's a stretch. But it's a lot more fun with Doom engravings, and I mean way more fun with Doom engravings. Even Death as well, but you can't live without Doom. That's just me. Fun value would have to be S, 100%. On the tier list, S or A. I'd say A. The speed increase is amazing, but the trade-off is it's hard to turn around, it's hard to curve around stuff because you're going faster, so you have less time. And it also takes longer to charge your chainsaw, which is then going to generate more heat, which sucks. And they could also make a window vault or pallet or something. But once you get going, oh, that's big news. Absolutely elite. I wouldn't say they're S tier because they come at a cost, but definitely A for sure. Black Reese, that's got to be low tier. D, I would even say. Yep. I'd rather probably the boots than this because it reduces your chainsaw heat. Like, it makes you cool quicker. Cool, fantastic. When a flashlight is shining on you, that's got to be a meme. Say no more. It's terrible. Leafy Mash, gain the undetectable status effect when you land a chainsaw hit. This, if you down a survivor with your chainsaw and then have the intention of picking up straight away, this add-on isn't for you. If you're going to capitalize and go snowball from there, maybe have infectious and infectious procs, and then you get your undetectable. But the variable is you have to kind of slug to make use of it. If you're gonna chainsaw somebody, get the down, pick up, you're wasting an add-on. For a green, you'd think it'd be kind of better, but this is tough. It's either B or C. But you only get 15 seconds, so you have to down the survivor, leave the survivor straight away, and zoom off to another part of the map. Let's say you have no information. You down someone and then have no real information. Where do you go from there? If the survivor's looking at you, what's the point of undetectable? Tune carburetor. You get moderately decreased chainsaw charge time. That's cool. That's great news. At a massive cost of being a 4.4 killer. Now I think, to be honest, when you start your chainsaw and rev it, your movement speed is the same regardless of whether you have this add-on or not. So that's good. The chainsaw movement speed when you're on your sprint is the same whether you've got this or not. It's the 4.4 will cuck you the most, I feel like, when you are running around tight objects. If you're just in the open, the difference between 115 and 110 killers, I don't think it's the biggest of a deal. But when you're getting looped on a small objects or on a filler pallet or something, that's when 4.4 really, you can see a big difference. So I mean, I'd say it's A tier, or maybe even B. I mean, it's cool, you get a way reduced charge time, which in turn you generate less heat. That's dope. But being a 4.4, this is, when I use this, it encourages me to chainsaw more often than usual because I'm walking so slow and I can't deal with it. And the fact that I can generate way less heat, so it's kind of beneficial and it's encouraging to go for more chainsaws, regardless of whether I should be doing it in that situation or not. Spike boots. I mean, you can turn, if you want to use Tokyo Drift Billy, this is the build I would use. I'd use Doom engravings with the spike boots if I'm doing Tokyo Drift Billy, which is a meme. In terms of usefulness and actually being good, I'd say it's a B. If you bump into something while using these, the survivor's gone. They can reach another tile indefinitely or make just so much distance. That's if you bump into something which you can anticipate you might not. Because usually you can anticipate a hit or a bump. But if you don't and you accidentally make a mistake and hit something, it feels like forever. But the ability to just go anywhere you want, this will come in good on better maps like Auto Haven maps where there's bits of debris everywhere. You can kind of zigzag around that, but I feel like it's a stretch giving it an A. If there needs to be something in the middle here, because giving it an A feels like a bit of a stretch. Turning a lot doesn't seem like the biggest deal to me. I'm gonna put it a B just cause. The low pro trains, A straight up. Definitely not an S tier, because if it was an S tier, it insta down. The fact that you can break a pallet and continue a sprint, maybe I'm thinking B. It's B or an A. There's no negative, which is, there kind of is a negative to your playstyle. Okay, you put this on, you can, I'm going B, and here's why I'm going B. It makes you respect pallets. If you're close to the survivor and you want to try and get value out of your low pro chains, well, you have to respect the pallet, because if you get stunned, well, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. It kind of makes you pull back from the pallet to rev your chainsaw, anticipating they're going to drop the pallet so you can just chainsaw through it. But what if they don't drop and you respect for nothing? They get another loop out of the tile or the filler. How often are they going to drop the pallet and stand directly in front of the pallet? You pull up your chainsaw with your low pro chains, they're not going to stand right in front of the pallet. Usually they hang off to the side of it. It's cool in theory, but I don't think it's that great. Unless they pre-drop a pallet early and you can just zoom in through it, or there's a drop pallet up ahead, you can just start your chainsaw, chainsaw through it and keep going. But it's going to make you respect the pallet because you want to try and get value out of low pro. It's a good add-on, don't get me wrong, but how often realistically do you get the opportunity to use this? When do survivors drop a pallet and stand right in front of it? Usually they hang off to either side, and once they know you have this, then it's over. They'll never stand in front of a pallet again. And even if you catch them off guard and chainsaw through the pallet for the first time, and because they don't realize you have it, you get a single health state hit. It's not even an insta down. But I'm gonna say it's a B, because Pig House gloves generate less heat when starting the chainsaw rev. Generate less heat. That's fantastic. No negative. The heat issue, I feel like, isn't the biggest deal with Billy.
Well, why are you boring me? I'm right.
Especially if you're not running engravings. Obviously it's annoying, but without engravings, the heat mechanic isn't the end of the world, like I've said before. It goes good with Doom engravings, I feel like. I'll give it an A. Generate less heat when starting a rev, not the biggest deal, but it has no cost, and less heat is less heat, so we'll give it an A. Iridescent brick, kind of nutty. We'll give it an S. Maybe we'll give it an A. I don't think it's... I'm really trying not to compare this to other killers, but first of all, you can't use engravings with this because you're going to get to your destination way too quickly, and 2 seconds will be over by the time you get there. So you gain undetectable, cool. You no longer have a terror radius, but you still have a chainsaw loud as to worry about. So I'd give it an A. You have no terror radius, which is good, but you also have the chainsaw noise to worry about. So they're gonna kind of be cautious. They're gonna hear the chainsaw, and they're gonna start looking around and try and anticipate where you're coming from. And because you don't have engravings on, well, you might, but you're not going to get as much value, I feel like, if you're using engravings, because you're going too quickly. You're not going to get 2 seconds as easy because you're just going so much faster. So if you're using this with no engravings, I think it's an A. It's good, don't get me wrong. Undetectable is solid, but you've got a massive 32 meter terror radius to consider as well. Apex muffler. You need other stuff. This is the problem with this pink add-on. It's good. Like, don't get me wrong, a pink add-on is good, but I feel like it could be better for pink. I mean, and you need too many variables to make this good. Your chainsaw is silent to survivors outside of your terror radius. Okay, so you enter their terror radius. You get within 32 meters of the survivor, which is your terror radius. Your chainsaw no longer is silent. So this by itself is not that great. You need to pair it with other stuff, and that's what sucks about it. It's a pink add-on that relies on you pairing with other add-ons like this one, the brick, to get actual value out of it. So you have to compare. You have to put these two pink add-ons together to get some synergy. Yeah, so by itself, it's not that great. For a pink add-on, you'd think it'd be better because you need to pair it with other add-ons or perks to get more value out of it. So you need to pair it with the brick. I mean, 2 pink add-ons, that's nuts. You should be having no trouble, but yeah, just standalone by itself, it's an A. I'd even go as far as to say it's a B. I think it's a B or an A. I mean, your terror radius is 32 meters. Once you cross that threshold and your survivors can hear your heartbeat, even faintly, your chainsaw is loud again for that particular survivor. So, I mean, I'd go as far as to say it's a B. It's not even that great. You need to pair this add-on with other add-ons like the brick or perks to get value. So if you had Tinkerer, that Pyramid Head perk where you can kick gens and go undetectable, even Monitor and Abuse where you can reduce your terror radius by 8 meters when not in the chase. That's not too bad, but just standalone by itself, I'd go as far as to say it's a B or a C. Maybe if you have engravings paired with it, which is you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because it should be going with this, you can get to the survivors quicker before they have a chance to react. But on its own, without other additional help from add-ons or perks, it's one of these two, C or B. I'm gonna say B because I feel like a dick. I feel mean giving it a C, but ain't that great. I couldn't think of any. I don't think Billy has any, in my opinion, has any S tier add-ons. If Doom engravings didn't have a cost associated with them, definitely S, but they do. If this didn't have a cost associated with it, reduced speed, it'd be a S. But unfortunately, yeah, it is. Everything, all the good stuff he has a cost, except the gloves, which is you can generate less heat, which isn't the biggest deal anyway. Anyway, this is just my opinion, my boys. But thanks for watching this. Feel free to comment and tell me what you think. And if you actually enjoyed the video and learned something from it, give me a like. Actually helps the channel grow. Peace.
Push the button. Come on, push the button.